The question is, how do we get there? How do we get to the functions, the measures we need to create? We are going to be learning about that in a moment. If you can remember, in page 1, we created what we call sales total. We used calculate, and I wanted to introduce us to it. Let us do that now. Calculate is by far the most important function in Power BI DAX. Once you understand how to use calculate and the incredible things it can do, I can tell you, you've almost understood everything about DAX when you understand calculate. Because with calculate, you are going to be discussing concepts about filter context and evaluation context. This is one of the most important principles in DAX. But again, this course, this bootcamp is not about what? It's not about DAX alone. We want to learn how to use Power BI and introduce users and build a project. There are textbooks, specialized courses on DAX alone that could be 10-20 hours long. Good. But let us briefly introduce ourselves to calculate for now. What is calculate? Calculate is that function in DAX that allows you to modify a filter context. So what do I mean? You have an existing filter, then you want to modify that filter to something else. You want it to calculate whatever you are trying to calculate based on another filter. So that is what calculate is doing. It's like you have a sieve. Then you pass some grains through it. Now, the grains have their own sieve. Now you want to use another sieve so that different sizes of grain will pass through that sieve. That is just an analogy of calculate. So how do we use calculate? We need to put an expression. This expression is mostly going to be a simple measure, an explicit measure like sales, like profit, or any other thing. It could be sales, top 5 sales. Maybe you've done a calculation or expression that is top 5 sales and you want to do a filter based on it. You need to understand, calculate works differently from other DAX functions. The second set of argument is going to be a filter. For example, in what we did earlier, we found the total sales for a market. So your filter can be anything. Maybe you want to calculate the sum of sales for a particular category. Like for example, you want the sum of sales for technology sales. Then you are going to have calculate total sales is going to be an expression. Sales, which is a simple measure. Then you have your filter here. This is the filter it is going to be using. Again, you can have sales total for markets. Then this is another filter that is happening. So it's going to present to you a filtered table. Basically, that is what all selected is doing. A filtered table based on geography markets. And that is calculate for you. But calculate is not the only thing in Power BI. We also have what we call time intelligence functions. Time intelligence functions allow you to write time intelligent DAX measure. By default, you are just going to be able to do some time intelligence functions like sales in previous year, sales same period last year, cumulative sales within a month, with cumulative sales within a year, cumulative sales within a quarter. These are all situations you can use calculate. So like I said, some of the use cases could be cumulative totals. Comparison of one time period to another. You want to analyze the new customer orders by month. You also want to know the stock on hand value and a lot of other things. So when we check the Power BI DAX documentation, we can see it. We also have DAX Guide, which is another website that we can see and learn a lot about DAX functions. So these are some of the important time intelligent functions like start of quarter, start of year, total MTD, which is used to evaluate expression over a period within a month. You understand? So maybe you want to aggregate the sales within a month, cumulative. Then you use total MTD. QTD is going to aggregate within a quarter. Then YTD is going to aggregate within a what? Within a year. Then we have parallel period, previous day, previous month, previous quarter, previous year. Sales period last year, same period last year, start of month. We have a lot of DAX and time intelligence functions. And even in the December 2023 Power BI updates, we have about 55 functions that were just released. Some of them are time intelligence, some of them are not time intelligence functions. But this shows how Power BI is updating every month. Then we have date add, date between, date in period, date MTD, date QTD, date YTD, end of month, end of quarter. So these are some time intelligence functions that we are going to be using in building our reports and in answering the questions and eventually in designing our reports and dashboard. So let's go to our Power BI desktop now and start creating some of these measures. Are we good to go? Yes, good to go. When we create measures in Power BI desktop, I have a principle I always use. I call it the table first principle. Even though you are not trying to present your results with a table to the end user or to the audience, but you need to see your report first. You want to check if your measure, whether it is giving you the output that you expect. In order to do that, you should use a table or matrix. It works all the time. So you are going to be sure, okay, is it working as I expect? When you create a measure, you have an expectation. Sometimes the results from your measure will not meet your expectation. Then you know that there's something wrong somewhere. I need to change something. So again, because of that, we are going to be using a table first approach. In some cases, we will be using matrix depending on the situation. And we already know the list of measures we want to create. So we have these ones already. We've introduced ourselves to calculate. So now let us find sales in previous year. And in order to do that, let's do something to make it easier for us. To see, and we create a new page. We paste this guy here and we put it in one corner. Good. So we want to create a measure called sales in previous year. And I'm going to come over here and do new measure. Then we have previous year. It's going to be what? Again, what do you expect to use? Because remember, what do we want to do? We know how to find our sales on its own. Sales, we know how to find it. If I have a table now and I just put my year, where is the calendar? The calendar year. I have my year over here and I have my sales. So what sales in previous year means is that in 2012, I want to see the result of 2011. In 2013, I want to see the result of 2012. In 2014, I want to see the result of 2013. So it means I'm trying to modify the filter context. And guess what? In order to modify the filter context, what do you use? You use calculate. Good. So I'm going to come to sales previous year and I'm going to have calculate. I put my sales there. Then what filter am I trying to use? Interestingly, we have a DAX, a time intelligence function to use, which is called previous year. You can see we even have other types of previous day, previous month, previous quarter, previous year. I'm just going to navigate tab. And now, this is very important. When we check, let us just go back a little. And it tells us, calculates previous year. We open the brackets. And it returns a previous year. And it's asking us for an input, an argument. Anytime you work with time intelligence function, it wants you to put a date inside it. So you need to put a date inside the previous year. Anytime you are in this situation, you should always use the date column with the lowest granularity, which is going to be the calendar date. That is what is going to be in there. So we are going to have the calendar dates. So that is the date column I'm going to use, and I'm going to close my brackets. We need to take note that sometimes Power BI has its own inbuilt dates, and it may want to show some face. So this is the calendar date that we are using. So I'm happy. Good. We have our sales in previous year. So I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to uncheck this date. I don't need it here. And I'm going to just check sales previous year. I have it. You can see it works as expected. It meets our expectation. Like I said, Power BI has its own inbuilt date calendar that it sometimes wants to try to use for you. So it's always good you do something. Come over here to date view. You come to your D calendar over here and you mark as date table. You make sure you mark as date table and you specify the date column as the date table you want to use in your reports. This is a very important step. Then I come back here. Good. So everything works good as I expect. Sales in previous year. So if you want to do sales in previous month also, let's do that as an exercise. What do you expect to use? What do you expect to use? Any guess? Any guess? Good. I'm just going to call it sales previous month. Then which function do we use? Calculate again. Calculate. Then we put sales. Then we put what? Previous month. Then what do we put inside previous month? Date. It wants us to put date inside it. So what do we put? The calendar date. Good. Because that is our date column. Then we have it. But because it is previous month, then in order to have a feel of how this result looks like, what do we need to do? We need to have a table, and this table is going to be what? It's going to be month table. Then we can use what we call month year. Then we have sales. Then we check sales previous month. But it starts from April, then January. Why this? Why this? Some issue. Why this? We are going to learn why doesn't it start from January? In order to fix this problem, let us change from month year to month first and see. Again, we have the same issue. Why does it not start from January? Okay, the solution is to come to your date calendar and you need to sort it. You want to have an order. You want to have January first. And you remember, we already have month number. So you just come over here to month, you select this column and say sort by column. What do you want to sort it by? Month number. Good. Month number. And for your month year, you want to sort it based on what? You want to sort it based on month year number. Good. This is month year number. Now, if you come back to your report view, we can see now that we have January as the first one. And we have February, March, April. So, you may be wondering, how do I have my month year number? In case you don't have your month year number and you want to know how to create it, you just come again to transform data. Then you go to your Power Query. In my Power Query, I come to my calendar table. And what do I have under my calendar table? We want to see how to create the month year number. Good. This is the month year number that we see over here. And where did we create that? Where did we create that? We can take a look at it. It looks like a custom column. And we check. This is for this. Then let's check this custom column. So this is what we use to create our month year number. We can see we multiply the year by 100 and we added the month number to it. So for 2011 January is going to show us 2011-01. 2011 February is going to show us 2011-02. And that was what we did. That was what we did. Good. Let us just, what do we do in this case? Let us just close and apply. Good. So everything looks good. Everything looks good. That is how to do that. And we have our sales in previous month, basically. And we can see it works as expected. But maybe we don't need this table for now. Maybe we need it. We shall figure out. But if you want to retain it, we can just include a slicer. A slicer is another visualization. It's always easy to include visualization in Power BI. You just need to come out of a chart first. When you come out of the chart, you select the chart you want and you put whatever field you want to put inside it, which is year in this case. And this is my year and I can change how it is appearing. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to come over here for the slicer and I do not want a slider and we can check what is happening for our year. What is on year? This is year. And it seems year is something. There's something happening to year. Let us check. What is the data type for year? Year seems to be whole number. Year needs to be a text. So we come here and put it as a text. The moment you specify year as a text and you come back to your reports view, we can see it changes how it appears. Good. So now this is what we have. And if you click on 2011, it's only going to show 2011. You click on 2012, it shows 2012 alone. 2013, it shows 2013 alone. 2014. This slicer is filtering everything. Then we uncheck it. Good. Everything works as expected. So let us continue. Let us do sales same period last year. Sales same period last year. So in order to do that, we come over to measure table again. Right click, new measure. Then we do sales same period last year. Let's call it SPLY equals what? Is there a function to use? How do we do that? Maybe we use calculate again. Calculate. Then we do sales. Let us see. And is there something like same period last year? Yes, same period last year is a time intelligence function. Then we put, it's expecting us to put a date inside it. Then we put the calendar date. Good. Close the brackets once, close the brackets second time, enter. Now we can show it on this table and we check our sales same period last year. Now we can see now same period last year and we click on 2012. We can see now sales period last year is showing us the sales in January for 2011, which is 98,000 plus. So now I can quickly say that, okay, this is my sales in January 2012, but for same period last year, which is 2011 now, this is the sales. And we can see the comparison. That is same period last year. It's going to be comparing two different periods together. In this case, month is what is comparing based on year. Good, good, good. So we can uncheck this and everything is good. So once you don't check anything, there's not going to be any year it's going to look at, and it's just doing the total aggregation. And that is what we have here. So let us just continue and have transactions SPLY or transactions previous year first. So let's come over here, new measure, and we do transaction. So the question is transactions previous year. Do we have transactions on its own as a measure? No. So we need to create that base measure first, that simple measure first. So we call it transactions. So when you do transactions, what does it mean? What does it mean? We need to know what it means. Let us come to our data again. And let's come to the fact table. This is a fact table. So when I want to know transaction, for example, each line, each order ID, for example, is a transaction. Each order ID is a transaction. So for example, I think I have 51,290 transactions. So that is what it means, basically something like that, because as long as I do not have repeated order ID. So for each order ID, we have a transaction. If you want to know the transaction base measure, what do we do? Are we trying to do a sum? No. What we are trying to do is going to be a count. So we are going to use a function called count rows. And we are going to count everything inside our F order table. Good, which is the fact table. Good. And we press enter. Everything looks good. Now we can have the total transactions for each of the year. I'm just going to bring it here. Check the column. This is the total of the transactions, 51,209. So I can now easily create the transactions in previous year now. Then new measure. Then I have transactions. We call it PY equals calculate. Then we put the base measure inside it, which is transactions. Good, comma. Then we use which time intelligence function? Previous year. Good. Then we put the calendar date inside it. Then we close the brackets once, close the brackets second time, press enter. Good. Now we can have transactions previous year in this place. It works as expected. Our expectation is met. Good. Now we have transactions previous year, sales SPLY. We need to go to transactions SPLY. It's going to be what? Calculate again. Transactions base measure. We put same period last year, the calendar date. Good. Close the brackets once, close the brackets second time, enter. And that is just that. About that, we can see now we have transactions SPLY and we have that. Let us do sales YTD. Sales YTD is going to be what? Sales YTD. We can come over to measure again. Create new measure. Then we have sales YTD year to date equals, do we use calculate? Maybe. Let's do calculate. Then we put the base measure, sales, then comma. So there's a very good function. I think it is called date YTD. Good. Now, inside date YTD, what do we put inside it? It's expecting the calendar date. Then we close the brackets once, close the bracket second time, enter. Now I can visualize it inside this second table. What do I put inside? I'm going to put sales YTD. I check the box. Then I'm going to check the year over here. Now we can see aggregation. We can just put it beside sales. Now we can see 135k plus 100k is about 236k. You can see it's doing the aggregation per year. Within a year, it aggregates for you. Same way if you do sales QTD, it's going to aggregate within a quarter. For example, if I come over here, sales QTD, let us do that. Sales QTD is going to be calculate. Then we put sales, comma. What do we put inside? Date QTD. Then the calendar date. Close the brackets once, close the bracket second time, enter. Then if you check the box, sales QTD. Now we can see within a quarter, January, February, March. Let us just put it somewhere here. We can see within a quarter, it aggregates, then it comes again, it starts again from April. It aggregates it till June, then it starts again in July. The current value, then it aggregates it to September. Then it comes again in October, the current value, aggregates it to December, and so on and so forth. And that is that about sales QTD. There is something I'm interested in showing us. We also have another beautiful function that can be used for YTD, and that is, let me show us, new measure. Let us call it sales YTD2. The name of the measure is total YTD. Total YTD has calculates embedded in it. So we are going to put sales. It is asking us for dates. So I'm going to put the calendar date and I close my bracket. Good. And I want to compare sales YTD. I check the box. We can see it works the same way. It works the same way as using dates YTD. The only thing is if you use total YTD, it is already modifying the filter context based on that. But it has calculates embedded in it. But if you want to use date YTD, then you need to use calculate. Total YTD does not need calculate. And that is that about that. Okay, good. We have total. So we need to do transaction YTD also. So transaction YTD. We can use total YTD in this case. Total YTD, we put transaction, the base measure. Then what do we do next? Comma, the calendar date. Close the brackets once, enter. Then we can just we want to see how it works inside this place. Then we can just do, where are you? Transactions YTD. We check the box. So we need to check a particular year and we can see now it aggregates the transaction for 2012. So you could do transaction QTD, transaction MTD if that's what you want. We could also open another report page. For example, I could want quarter and I come to quarter now. And we have Q1, Q2. And I can still put my sales if I want. And I put again what? I put sales and I put sales YTD. And we can see how it aggregates it. We have Q1 2011, but we can see we have a problem with the order. So we can just use a slicer. Where is here? Now 2011. We have Q1 2011, Q2 2011, Q3 2011. You can see how it does the aggregation because you are aggregating within a year. Where YTD. We could also do the same transactions and do transactions YTD. It works well. It works well. It works well. And that is part of the beauty of Power BI and DAX. Sometimes you have simple measures to use. All these things we are still doing, we are still scratching the surface of DAX. There is a lot of learning to do when we do DAX. Good, good. So let us continue with what we are doing. And we want to do sales YOY and sales YOY percent. For sales YOY, I mean sales year on year. In order to do that, we come over here again, new measure. Now, for us to do sales YOY, we just do sales YOY equals, what do we need? We need to find difference between the current year and the previous year. That is the sales YOY, which is the actual sales minus sales in previous year. Where are you? Good. We press enter. But this is just the change. What we actually do need is the percentage. So what is the percentage going to be? It is going to be what? The difference divided by what? Divided by the previous year. So the difference between these two, we divide it by the previous year. So let us just do new measure and we call it sales YOY percent equals what? This difference, which is sales YOY that we created already, divided by previous year. But remember, like I explained, we always prefer to use divide. So instead of doing division, you just put comma over here and you close the bracket. And with this sales YOY percent that you have now, you come over here and we can check the box. Sales YOY. Now we have the percentages. We have the percentages for sales YOY. That is sales YOY. And if you want it to show as a percentage, we click on sales YOY, then we change it to percentage format. Good. If we come to this place, we can make sales YOY to appear percentage and we uncheck this. So maybe we do not need this. So this is that. That is that on that. And we could do a lot of other things. But let us leave it and come back here now. And we have our sales YOY. We want it to appear on this particular chart also. We just check sales YOY and we come to 2012 and we can see our sales YOY. We have some strange values there and we have some reasons for that. 2013, 2014. So the question now is, why is it showing these strange values, which doesn't look correct? Yes, it doesn't look correct. Why? Because it doesn't understand. The filter you have here is month, and what you have here is year. So what we actually need to do, if you want to do sales YOY, and what you are trying to do is sales YOY, but you are comparing with the previous year, not with the previous month. What you need to do is to use same period last year. In that case, same period last year. That is what you need to put in your visual if you are going to be using month here. So this is correct for this particular one, but when it comes over here, it doesn't look correct again. So is that okay? So what we can do in that case is we create another sales. We have sales SPLY already. We have sales SPLY. So we are going to create another new measure. We call it sales YOY percent. But we want to use it for month. So we have divide, and what do we put here? We are going to put sales minus what? Sales same period last year and comma. Then what do? We have to divide by sales same period last year again, and we close the brackets. Then we apply the percentage filter, and what do? We check this. Then we can select the year. Now these values look correct. Yes, this value looks correct. It looks like what we want. So we can see now that every time we click on this slicer, it filters this particular chart. So if I do not want it to filter this particular chart alone, I want it to filter only this table, I need to select the slicer first. Then I'm going to come to data drill or format. Yes, format. I'm going to click on edit interactions. So now the moment I click on edit interactions, can you see that we have something here? So I still want it to interact with this. I'm only going to come here and I'm going to say none. Now every time I select this slicer, we can see it's only filtering this second table and not the first one. So that works. So that is one of the interaction tips we need to learn in Power BI. So I do not need to always change this. So we have sales YOY for the year, sales YOY for the month, which works well. It works well as expected. So we are beginning to have everything we want. So let us do transaction YOY also. But in this case, we have new measure and we are going to have transaction OY%. But again, it's for month, just for us to take note of that. And what do we have? We have divide. Then we have transactions, the base measure. Then minus transactions. Then we divide by what? Transactions LSPLY again. Then we close brackets. Enter. So we can remove this because we do not want it again. We've created almost all the measures we need. And we are going to come to transactions. Where are you? Seems it was created somewhere else. Let's check again. Okay, this is it. So we check the box. We remove this. Then we check this. Transaction YOY. We change the format to percentage. Good. So now everything works as expected. We are happy. Good. So we have our transactions YOY%. We've almost created all the measures that we need. What we need to do now is to start creating our visualization. So we can build our reports and do a lot of things we want. So we can see we need to create a lot of measures. So if we want to do discounts also, we can do discount SPLY, discount YOY, discount YTD, and we are going to write similar measures like we wrote for sales and transaction. And that is the essence of what we call calculation group in Power BI, which I'm going to be introducing to us. By using calculation groups, you do not need to go through the stress. You only need to write the functions you need at once. Then if you want to do profits YOY, it does it for you. If you want to do sales YOY, it does it for you. Discounts YOY, it does it for you. Transactions YOY, we do it for you automatically.